How simple it is.
I'm Ron Redmond, and I'm director for the Church Street Marketplace District in Burlington, Vermont. The street was closed off. Actually, the first two blocks, the center blocks, were closed off in 1981. It's one of a few that has a pedestrian mall that's still working, and we've been very fortunate. We've had a number of components in place that make the mall successful, and I think one of them is having a university that's only 4 blocks away with 10,000 students, also being 4 blocks from a lake, and also having really small footprints. All of the buildings on Church Street are historic. One of the things that we tell people who are thinking about closing a street and creating a pedestrian mall is we say don't do it. And sometimes you can take a street and maybe close it off periodically for events, activities. Maybe you can widen the sidewalks and allow outdoor cafes to spill out. One thing that we suggest is that if you do close off a street, keep the side streets open so that cars can cross through it. And I know that Ithaca has been trying to do that. Other communities have seen that that was something that would be really important. But as a fallback, we say, look, if you really want to close a street, close it for festivals, every Friday night for dining, something like that, but don't do it on a permanent basis. A lot of pedestrian malls weren't successful because, it was just, everybody was excited to do it, and I think it turned out for many communities not to be such a good idea.
Susan Schmitz, president of Downtown Madison Incorporated in Madison, Wisconsin. Downtowns are about people, and so when you talk about a pedestrian mall, we're talking about pedestrians, which is great. And we have a lot of little shops along our pedestrian mall, which is very, very attractive. And then there are always challenges. There's challenges in terms of transportation. We have a lot of really nice locally owned restaurants, and they want to have dining outside, and we allow buses on our mall. So we have large buses going up and down the mall on a regular basis, and people are sitting outside eating, and they don't like that. So we're actually looking at that in terms of, do we need smaller buses? What do we need? Because it's a transit mall for us, so we receive federal funds. I think what makes it work are the people on the streets and the facades of the buildings, and then the way they interact and interface, and that they become just about as close as can be, and it works. There have been ideas for changing State Street one way or another, but it's like, be careful. It's about the facades of those cool buildings. They're older buildings and right up against the sidewalk and the pedestrians, and it makes for a great feel. I mean, there are 40,000 students, and like I said, if they only go up about halfway, so what? I mean, there's just a vitality that they bring to that street, and if they were plucked out of there, it would be a very, very different street, and I'm not sure what it would look like. It's hard to imagine because they've been there for so long. Well, we have a couple of major streets that cut through State Street, and one goes east and one goes west. They're one way, and actually that works really well. It's a nice way for people to get to the downtown and through the downtown. Our street has easy access for all folks. I mean, and that's what you want for a pedestrian mall. So just be careful. Make sure that the access is easy for all modes. Bikes, walking, buses, cars, all of it.
I'm Nancy Hormann, and I'm the president and executive director of the Downtown Tempe community in Arizona.
Okay. And before you were at Tempe, you were at Raleigh.
I was at downtown Raleigh in North Carolina. Raleigh was trying to find a way to revitalize their very dying downtown, and one of the major issues was in 20 years prior to that, they took their main street and pedestrianized it and took the vehicular traffic off of it. And for the first 5 years or so of that mall, it was very successful. And after the novelty wore off, it went downhill every year to the point that when we looked at doing something, although many people still came and walked the streets, commerce on that street was very, very low end, was not contributing much at all to the tax revenues for the city, and it was really kind of scary. to walk down the streets at many times. It went from Fayetteville Street and radiated out about 2 to 3 blocks in either direction that had slowly died as the pedestrian mall died. It didn't just stay on that mall. It really affected the whole downtown area. There was a very long debate because there were a lot of people that were in the community that were there 20 years before that who were instrumental in making that a pedestrian mall, and they were very close to it, and it was a personal affront to them that we thought that we wanted to open it up. And we had to go through a lot of iterations with people explaining that it is important for a city to react to the marketplace. And although many pedestrian malls had been put in across the nation, there were only 6 left in the United States. There had to be a reason why there were only 6 left. And in every case, any pedestrian mall that reopened, their retail and residential on that area completely took off just from opening the street. When we tried to recruit retailers to the closed pedestrian mall, they knew that the only people that were going to see their stores were the ones that were walking up and down the street. We had retailers very interested once we would open the street because they knew if someone could drive by their store and see it, that they would come back to it at another time. We got the entire community involved. We did several charrettes about what they wanted to see, what they wanted to save, and what they remembered about Fayetteville Street before and after it became a mall. And what we did was we presented back to everybody what the memories were, and all the good memories were before it became a pedestrian mall instead of after. 6 months of redesign, 18 months of construction. During construction, because there was so much hype about what was going on down there, the side streets started to get all these retailers that wanted to come in and beat their crowd of who was going to locate in the downtown. And probably 6 months before we even opened the street, the side streets had already transformed, only all about the hope of what the change of downtown was going to be.
My name is David Diaz, and I'm the President and CEO of the Downtown Raleigh Alliance. This morning, Business Week ranked Raleigh as America's best city.
No kidding.
So we're very excited, yes. And I think Raleigh's transformation was catalyzed by undoing the pedestrian mall. When Fayetteville Street was reopened to traffic, it really changed the perception of downtown relative to the business community, the residential community, and investment really followed quickly after we reopened the street. The first festival we held to celebrate the opening, we called it Raleigh Wide Open. We thought Raleigh Wide Open would attract 10,000 to 20,000 people to the downtown, and 75,000 people showed up to our downtown to celebrate with us what they saw as the renaissance for downtown. Fayetteville Street opened in 2006, and we've seen almost $3 billion of investment since the streets has been reopened. On the Class A, we have a 4% vacancy rate, so it's very small. Condominium-wise, we're 95% occupancy, so just 5% vacancy on residential. We think the single biggest factor for that reinvestment in the downtown was made possible by reopening the street. By opening up the street, the private sector saw that the community and the government leadership was serious about enhancing the downtown. You know, pedestrian malls were done throughout the country in the 60s and 70s. Ours was done in 1973. And we found that 9 out of 10 just didn't work. And I think it's a big lesson for leaders of cities, whether you're a private sector business leader or a mayor or a town manager, and that is that you have to be really careful about introducing a suburban idea to an urban environment. And I think that's what a pedestrian mall was. It was a way of trying to create a mall in a downtown, and it really wasn't a good match for a lot of cities, including Raleigh. Yeah. Fayetteville Street is a district into itself, and we have seen a lot of new investment on the Main Street, but we're really happy about the investment that's occurred outside of the Main Street. So I think reopening up the street had a catalytic effect beyond Main Street.
A lot of downtowns really revolve around their main street and everything that happens on that main street. And this town had lost its identity. They didn't have a main street. They didn't have the place where everybody went. And that created that community. That was something that they were excited about, having their main street back again.
La comunidad está muy animada porque nosotros abrimos nuestra calle central, Fayetteville Street. Gracias.